Imagine walking through a pitch-black forest. Every shadow looks like a threat, every snap of a twig sounds like a footstep, and suddenly, you hear the voice of someone you love calling out to you from the darkness. Do you turn around? Well, in this explainer, we're breaking down a seriously chilling tale of folklore from the Deepvan forest to uncover something absolutely fascinating: how our own psychology literally weaponizes fear against us. We'll be looking at the legend of the Chhalava, dissecting this terrifying journey taken by a couple named Naresh and Mamta, and actually analyzing the mechanics of fear itself. Let's just get right into it.
Whoever meets you on the way, no matter how close they seem, do not look back. Now that isn't just some spooky piece of advice. That's the chilling warning delivered by a local shopkeeper right at the edge of the forest, and it immediately sets these intense life-or-death stakes for the journey we're about to analyze. It's basically a psychological anchor. From this exact moment on, the protagonists, and honestly us as the audience, know that their own senses are about to become their absolute worst enemy.
Section 1. The Midnight Call.
So let's look at how this nightmare actually kicks off. Every good thriller starts by forcing its characters right out of their comfort zone, right? It's the middle of the night, and a traveling merchant bangs frantically on Naresh and Mamta's door. He brings this alarming news: Mamta's elderly parents in the village of Deepvan are gravely ill. Now, what's really interesting about this setup is exactly how it exploits familial love and duty. It forces this urgent, completely unprepared night trek through a famously dangerous, dense forest. They even make a brief, seemingly innocent stop at a fruit stall to grab some apples and bananas for the sick parents. But that stop is exactly where they get that horrifying warning we just talked about. The trap is officially set.
Section 2. Terrifying Rules of the Forest.
Okay, let's dive into this lore and figure out the specific threats waiting in the dark. Like, what exactly is hunting them out there? It's called a Chhalava. It's a shape-shifting entity from local folklore. But here's the crucial part. It doesn't just rely on sharp teeth or brute strength. No, it feeds on human vulnerability. It flawlessly mimics the voices and appearances of your loved ones to lure you away from the path. This isn't just some mindless monster. It's a highly evolved psychological predator that directly attacks the mind. It literally weaponizes your own trust and affection against you.
To survive against a psychological predator, you kind of need psychological armor, right? So here's the strict rulebook of the Deepvan forest. Step 1. Do not look back if someone calls you. Step 2. Ignore familiar voices in the dark. And Step 3. Keep moving straight forward. I want you to keep this mental checklist in the back of your mind as we go along, because having this strict set of rules instantly amps up the anxiety. Every single time a branch snaps or a voice calls out, this is the only thing Naresh and Mamta have to violently cling to if they want to survive.
Section 3. The Valley of Death.
As the couple actually enters the dense woods, the unnatural events kick off, and the pace of the horror really starts to escalate. This timeline brilliantly illustrates the Chhalava's true method. It doesn't just strike once and give up. It wears its victims down over multiple days of sheer terror and physical exhaustion. We start with night 1, this desperate journey to Deepvan where they're super disoriented, basically walking in circles past the exact same banyan tree. Somehow they survive and reach the village. But then, driven by his farm duties, Naresh attempts a solo return trip at 2 a.m. that very same night. By day 4, a fake message arrives, pulling Naresh right back into the forest. And finally, day 5 brings the ultimate daylight escape. This entity completely operates through relentless attrition.
Let's zero in on that 2 a.m. solo trip Naresh makes. He's in the dark woods and suddenly encounters Mamta, which is impossible, right? Because he literally just left her back at her parents' house. So how does he know it's not actually her? Well, think about a real human. Blinking eyes, normal movement, actually feeling fear. Now compare that to the Chhalava imposter. Naresh makes this terrifying but ultimately life-saving observation. He notices the entity mimicking his wife has these fixed, unblinking eyes. It's a flawless mimicry in shape and sound, but that total lack of subtle human micro-expressions, that's what gives the monster away.
So, after calling out the fake Mamta, things escalate wildly. Naresh runs for his life until he reaches a ruined well and actually finds the fruit stall merchant sitting there. But guess what? This is just another trick. When Naresh realizes the merchant's voice is changing, the entity completely drops its disguise. The merchant grows unnaturally tall, his face turns pitch black, and his eyes start burning like actual fire. Naresh realizes he's been lured straight toward the Valley of Death. He just has to sprint for the village borders with absolutely everything he has, chanting Jai Bajrang Vali for spiritual protection as this monster literally stalks him through the trees.
Section 4. Chhalava's Dangerous Trap.
Let's jump ahead to day 4. The entity realizes that raw, in-your-face horror didn't work, so it actually adapts its strategy to calculated manipulation. I absolutely love how smart the folklore makes this creature. On day 4, the traveling merchant visits Naresh at his home. He delivers a message from Mamta. But notice the contrast here. The real message Mamta gave the merchant earlier that day was patient. Come whenever you are free. But the Chhalava actually intercepted it, or disguised itself as the merchant, to deliver a completely fake message to Naresh. Come tonight, no matter how late. You see what it did? The entity pivots from physical horror straight to emotional guilt. It perfectly mimics the merchant in broad daylight just to successfully lure Naresh right back into the night.
And so Naresh is forced to make his second night run. But this time, he knows exactly what's out there. The air thickens with this incredibly strong smell of rotting forest. The merchant's voice starts echoing from the darkness, chasing him, mocking him, even asking to walk with him. The entity is literally trying to herd a completely panicked Naresh off the safe path and into a deep ravine. It's this frantic, heart-pounding sprint. Naresh is practically blinded by panic until he miraculously spots the warm glow of his father-in-law Raghunath's lantern light, which saves his life right at the absolute edge of the village.
Section 5. Identifying real and fake.
Okay, so it's the morning of day 5. Naresh and Mamta decide to just flee the village together in broad daylight, assuming that the sun obviously means safety. But that illusion is about to shatter. They are power walking through the forest under the morning sun. Naresh is totally paranoid. He's refusing to even speak, just pulling his wife along behind him. Now I want to slow down right here. Rushing through the woods, Mamta's hand suddenly slips from Naresh's grip. He turns around, breaking the absolute cardinal rule of the forest. And when he does, he is faced with the ultimate psychological puzzle. 2 identical, utterly terrified Mamtas are standing right before him. They both look real. They both sound real. In a split second, Naresh has to decide which wife is the woman he loves and which is the monster waiting to tear him apart.
So how in the world does he survive this? Let's trace his logic here. First, Naresh forcibly calms his panic and actively recalls the specific rules of the Chhalava. He looks closely and analyzes their physical grounding. He notices one of the Mamtas doesn't even have her feet touching the ground. Relying on unwavering faith and just raw courage, he refuses to play the monster's game of doubt. He shouts a powerful battle cry of truth to shatter the mirage. Confronted with absolute certainty and zero fear, the imposter's power completely breaks and it just dissolves into black smoke, leaving only his real wife behind.
Section 6. Final victory over fear. Now that they've finally escaped the forest for good, let's look at the core takeaway of this incredible story. Safely back home, the couple reflects on what they've just been through and they summarize it perfectly. Fear is in our minds, and the Chhalava merely exploits that fear. The monster's true weapon was never its claws or its speed. Its weapon was their own panic, their guilt, and their vulnerability. Once Naresh conquered his own internal terror and anchored himself in truth and logic, the monster literally vanished into thin air. And that brings us to our final, and perhaps most provocative, thought. Was the Chhalava truly a supernatural ghost haunting the Deepvan forest, or is it a masterful metaphor for the fear that lives inside our own minds? Think about the Chhalavas in our own lives, the anxieties that mimic reality and paralyze our logic. The next time you find yourself wandering through a dark patch, remember the rules. Stay focused, don't let panic herd you off the path, and above all, keep moving forward. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I hope breaking this down brought some clarity to the shadows. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.